Aquarius, welcome to your December 2019 Astro Update. It's Raina here. So I'm just recovering from a cold, so I'm a little bit hoarse and also a little bit late to post these, but there's still a lot to talk about. And one of the big pieces of news which has occurred in the last week is that Jupiter has gone into Capricorn. And Jupiter will stay in the sign of Capricorn until December of 2020. So we're looking at just over a year that this is going to take place. And for you, this is going to be in a very interesting place, the 12th house. And the reason that this is interesting is that this is a very retiring sector. You know, it's like kind of the area, the house of the monk, the hermit. It's not very social, extroverted out there. It's actually very introverted and very into contemplation. Now, when I said the word contemplation, a sense of peace came over me because, you know, even though I don't have any planets in the 12th house, I love what it represents in that regard. For some Aquarians, you may have similar feelings, but, you know, Aquarius is an air sign. And usually I think air has to circulate. It's funny, I read so much. I was thinking, that's pretty clever. Did I make that up? You know, because I'm saying it. I don't know if I read it somewhere, though, because I read so much. But I do feel that that's the case, that air signs are very sociable, and especially with Aquarius being the ruler of the 11th house, you're talking about friends. That's the friendship sector, as well as group associations. So, you know, whatever kind of cause a person belongs to, if they, you know, maybe they're taking an art class or something. But the point is that you do like to be connected to others, even if it's in a rather detached sort of a way. Interestingly, the sun is in this sector until the solstice on the 21st. The sun is in Sag, and Sag is your 11th house, you know, rules your particular 11th house that you rule in the universal chart. So this is like a double Aquarius type of energy in a sense, where the sun is in the house that is Aquarius, and and if you're an Aquarius, and even if you're an Aquarius rising, this will still kind of enhance those Aquarian vibes. And so let me put it this way. I think that initially you're still going to be quite social because of the Sagittarius energy. After all, the sun stays in Sag until right before Christmas. Of course, it does so every year. And isn't it funny that that is the holiday season? I mean, even going back to the end of November, we're in America, we have Thanksgiving, and that's the kickoff. You know, it's during Sagittarius. And so there's these jovial feelings. So I do expect you to spend this holiday season still kind of doing your social thing. And even though Jupiter is there in the 12th, Jupiter isn't a personal planet, so the influences that have may not be directly on your personality. So Mercury also goes into that 11th house on the 9th, so it joins the sun there. Interestingly, Mercury leaves its shadow on the 8th of December. Remember, back to Halloween, that's when the Mercury retrograde began at a late degree of Scorpio. So it took this long for it to go through all of its retrograde, and, well, even longer if you count the pre-shadow. I mean, before the pre-Mercury retrograde shadow. Then we're talking even longer than that. But I don't really get too caught up in shadow periods. That can lead to a lot of procrastination when you're trying to accomplish things because you're looking for the perfect moment, and I'm just afraid that it can actually work against the average person more than it can ever help. However, I will say that for me, that this Mercury retrograde kicked my butt. Sometimes it's like not even noticeable, but this time I had like a comedy of errors. So even after the official retrograde was over and it went direct, so I'm actually looking forward to this, you know, emerging from the shadow myself. Now, this occurred in your 10th house of career, this Mercury retrograde. So I'm wondering how many Aquarians actually have been rethinking their career choice. Now, if you're, I was going to say a kid, which is what I think of college-age people because of my perspective, you might say, or I'll say young adult to be more respectful, but you might be, I would even like say your major, even though that could be more of the ninth house of higher learning. But if you have a career path that you've carved out for yourself, especially I would say if you have done an internship or something on the job training that's connected to your university, you may have had second thoughts about whether or not you want to do that particular thing. It's kind of funny. I think that this should be kind of almost like if you're going to go to college and you're going to get a certain training for something, that you do have that in all cases, that you do have to do some kind of real world experience, because you may find that you don't like it. And it's easy to sit in an ivory tower and study about stuff, but when you're actually there and you're like, ugh, I don't like this kind of work. So some of you may be rethinking your career path or have been, and now it's fully resolved. And then Mercury is going into the 11th house, and as I said, it's on the 9th. And so your thoughts turn to other things. Now, it could be goals, because the 11th house are hopes and wishes, but what they're really talking about is, okay, yes, you have a career, but you are an individual, regardless of whatever you do for a living or whatever your career is. You have other dreams, that are not career related, and your mind may be on those things, and you may even want to make a list of some of the things that you would like to manifest, because you're going to have a lunar eclipse in the same sector 6 months from now in June. And, if you kind of like write down some of your intentions, even though this isn't a new moon in Sagittarius, you can still do it. I mean, you can always write intentions. So who knows? Maybe that will set things into motion and you will see the manifestation in the summer. Well, Northern Hemisphere, you know what I'm talking about, in June, let's put it that way. You may be very talkative with friends, like you may be reaching out to friends that you haven't hooked up with, which makes sense. This is a holiday season and we catch up with people. Sometimes during the rest of the year we're too busy for that. And yeah, so it could be very social on a verbal level as well. And then on the 11th or 12th of December, wherever you live in the world, there's going to be a full moon at 19 degrees of Gemini. Well, Gemini is the first air sign. You're the last air sign. This is going to be in your fifth house of romance and creativity, Aquarius. So this could have different manifestations. There may be somebody that you see across a crowded room who is, like at a holiday party maybe, and it dawns on you, and maybe this is even like a coworker. I mean, sometimes when I see the full moon is in the fifth house, I think of somebody that you already know, but that you kind of have a aha moment about and say, duh, all this time I've been kind of running around trying to figure out like what to do with my life and my feelings, or my love life, and I've had this platonic friend the whole time, and this was the person for me. Actually, it's hard to imagine an Aquarian who would have that kind of a revelation, because you probably do fall in love with your friends. Aquarius is a sign of friendship, so I definitely see an Aquarius person who values that and wouldn't, separate it from being attracted to such a person. But the full moon can bring things to kind of a level where a heightened state, where you feel like you have to do something different in order to move on with the relationship. So what that can mean is either, like if you're dating somebody, you're going to commit to them fully, like monogamy, a ring, whatever it is, whatever that means for you and the other person. For some people, it's, let's part ways because we can't seem to see eye to eye. We just don't seem to have a good rapport. Let's quit when we're ahead. This is a great time for artists. You may have like a brilliant idea that dawns upon you. And yeah. So on the 20th, Venus goes into your sign. So that means that Venus has been in the 12th house for the first few weeks of the month. Venus in the 12th can mean that some of you are perhaps you may have met somebody who felt strangely familiar, and maybe it's like a past life connection that you're hooking up with all over again. And for some people, Venus in the 12th can mean some kind of clandestine relationship. It doesn't have to be an affair that is the result of, some infidelity or anything. Could be, but doesn't have to be. You may just be very discreet about it. Do any of you have a moon in Scorpio by any chance? You might just feel like, hey, it's none of anybody's business who I'm dating, especially if you have felt like your love life has been under the microscope. You may just feel like you don't want to have that kind of scrutiny, and you're just dating somebody. And if it does turn out to be the real deal, you'll introduce them to the public. Well, Venus going into the first house may be that you're ready to kind of make it known that you're dating a specific person. Venus in the first house, Venus in your sign, can be really good for being attractive. And I'm not just talking about the physical aspect of it. It may be something kind of indefinable where people feel drawn to you. Venus is the attractor, and we think of that word attractive, and we just automatically think of looks. But really, it means that other people are drawn to the individual. And, rather than repelling somebody, it's like, drawing them like a magnet to you. And this doesn't have to be just for romantic situations. This can be for somebody who is looking to be, get a new job, and they want to go into an interview and actually impress the person that is checking them out. And actually, in some cases, which I don't really like, but I mean, they are checking on body language. They are looking at kind of the nonverbal cues or clues to determine whether or not the person would be a good fit for their organization. And you may pass with flying colors because of the way that the vibes that you're giving off. On the 21st, we have the solstice. The sun goes into cardinal sign Capricorn. So the sun officially goes into that 12th house. And this is your month of hibernation. Happens every year. What a great time, too, because this is in the northern hemisphere, I should say, or even in the southern hemisphere. So it's summer there. No, I would say more of the northern hemisphere, where it's kind of like, I think of the cave, which is kind of the 12th house of being hidden somewhere where you're meditating and things like that. The 12th house is also the house of suffering and self-undoing. And so it is a great time to kind of look at your the traits that you have that may work against you. And understanding, what is creating that and how to kind of deal with it. Because you're going to have, Mercury is going to go here too. Well, I mean, I'm jumping ahead of myself. We have a solar eclipse here. And this solar eclipse is happening on Christmas evening, or for some on the morning of the 26th. Well, Australia, maybe afternoon, who knows. And the area of the 12th house is a weird place to have a solar eclipse, because it's like a new beginning in the last house. Usually the 12th house is associated with, endings and, kind of tying up loose endings. But, the astrological chart is a circle, and circles are endless. So, if you think of the first house is after the birth, the 12th house is kind of like the womb state and, the pregnancy. So there's always something ready to be birthed, and it's waiting to go back to that first house. So you could, even if this is in the stage of kind of planning, this would be a great time for you to plan out the kind of things you want to manifest in 2020, because some of these things may be of a spiritual nature even. Since this house is so emphasized, you have so much already here. You have Pluto. You have the South Node. And that's kind of funny, having the South Node, which is about your karmic past and the karmic house, and Saturn in the 12th. And some of these are going to leave Capricorn. Saturn is leaving Capricorn in March. It's going to go back when it retrogrades, though. It's not going to go very far into your sign. But the South Node is going into Sagittarius. And this is going to happen in May. So, with Jupiter in this 12th house, it's kind of going to lighten the load a lot. And at this solar eclipse, Jupiter is in conjunction with the Sun and the Moon. Sun and Moon are for Capricorn. That's what a solar eclipse is, or a new moon. And Jupiter is at 5 Capricorn, so that's a conjunction. And your ruler, Uranus, is at 2 degrees of Taurus. So that's forming a trine to both of these. So the Taurus situation or trine is coming from the 4th house of home and family. So we got the 4th house and the 12th house, 2 water houses activated during this solar eclipse. This could be something psychological that has to do with your childhood even. It could have also something to do with something domestic related. If you have already been experiencing unusual situations, the 4th house is your mother, so there could be a lot of how could I put it, just twists and turns. Perhaps, it depends on your relationship with her too. But also just in your living situation, you may be moving quite a bit in the next 7 years or so, where you're not really settled. And for some reason, there's some kind of an influence coming from the 12th house. So it could be karmic in nature. And with Jupiter in the 12th house, you may have some kind of cosmic protector, guardian angel in the next year. Or just even like good karma from another lifetime that comes back even in a material way. So then on the 28th, we have Mercury going into that 12th house. And that's a time that it's good to meditate, because you may find that your mind is not as clear as it normally is, that it's more abstract, and also that your thoughts, that your intuitive faculties are heightened, but that can also interfere with your logical side. So, like the left brain might get a little bit interfered with. Aquarius is already a sign that's associated with intuitive gifts. So these may be off the hook in this time frame going into 2020. Okay, that's what I have for you, Aquarius. I have a special for the looking at some of the astro trends for you in 2020. It's an extended reading, 70 minutes long. There's some more information below this video if you want to check that out. And I have other astrological readings too at rainandmoonastrology.com. That's the train. And yeah, I'd love to read for you. But in any case, have a great end of this year. Boy, did it go fast, didn't it? Take care. Bye.